what's the deal? It's your boy Tag from Pro Wrestling Tag, you know what I mean? As of this recording, it is Wednesday, May 27th, 2026. You know what I mean? 7:37 p.m. You know what I mean? There's the only video I'm dropping for the day. You know, I'm upset because there was a girl who was, so right there on Fulton Street, right? Fulton and J Street, you know, you got people who stop you and they want you to donate, but they also tell you jokes and stuff, right? The girl who was talking to me, I was like, man, I should have got her number. Like, she was cute too. Like, damn. I know she was feeling the kid too. I should have done it. Damn. Fuck, I'm gonna get my chance. Trust me. She was cute, like a motherfucker. Brown skin and everything, bro. You know what I mean? Everything. You know, I should have done it, but I'll definitely post something out next time. You know what I mean? But trust me, I get it done. I work, baby. I work. Let me cross the street. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to talk about for this video because, of course, I put videos out and such, but something came up to me that I thought was very interesting, and I do want to address it because, you know, all the hype that we had for TNA going into 2026, right? You know, 2026 has been a bullshit year. Yeah, it's definitely been a trash year and such. You know, I keep hearing people say that, oh, AEW is going to take over WWE and they're going to take over WWE spot as the number one wrestling promotion in the United States. You know, everyone's getting hyped up over one fucking pay-per-view, right? But AEW always comes through in the clutch when it comes down to fucking everything up. You know what I mean? In terms of storyline and creative. And I'm pretty sure tonight is going to be no different. You know, so let's pump the fucking brakes. You know, they're never going to improve creatively. They don't want to improve creatively. You know what I mean? They don't want to. But it's not about AEW, right? You know, I wanted to bring something up in regards to TNA. Because all the hype that we see about TNA Impact and, you know, them going to AMC and everything else, you know, I'm going to keep it a stack with y'all. TNA on AMC has been a dud. It's been a dud. Now, I mean, it's definitely been a dud. And yes, a lot of the big stars were, gone. A lot of them, right? Some of their main stars were gone, from Kevin Knight to Speedball Mike Bailey to Josh Alexander. Hey, where is Josh Alexander? Where is he? Where is he? Matter of fact, I have a better question to ask you guys. This has nothing to do with TNA, but where's Private Party? Where's Private Party? Where's Camille? I mean, where's Camille? You know, where is she? You know, where's Wardlow? Huh? Where's Wardlow? Where's Britt Baker? Huh? Where's Britt Baker? Anyway, so TNA, right, on AMC has been a dud. You know, like, it's not, you know, all the hype that we've seen, you know, for TNA going to AMC, you know, going early into the year. Now, like, a lot of things have been cooled off to a point where I forget it's even on AMC at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I forget. You know, and yes, they still have the partnership with WWE. Of course, they still got that partnership with WWE. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I haven't really heard anything about, you know, like any storylines and such, you know, connecting both, you know, TNA and WWE, but I'm pretty sure they will be doing that again shortly. So, I mean, they still mention each other by names and such, right? You know, but, yeah, I mean, you know, it's crazy when you think about this because all that hype that TNA had, right, going into this TV deal, just to see it bomb, like, you know, 6 months later, and I'm like, man, you know, I don't know what the fuck is going on with TNA. I really don't. You know, like, there's a lot of false promises there, to me. You know what I mean? Definitely to me. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of figured that, okay, you know, we got another wrestling company and another big network and stuff, but there's no traction. Like, they have no real tractions and stuff. Now I mean, like TNA at this point is just like they're basically in the same position that they were last year, right? And you know what? Let me let this garbage guy. I'm a big fan of sanitation work. Let me just say this, right? You know, TNA, and yes, I think even if they would have never lost the big stars that they had, right? I still think, you know, the company would have cooled down. I mean, Mike Santana is WWE bound. I mean, he's definitely going to be WWE bound for sure. And I believe Leon Slater is going to be WWE bound as well, too. You know what I mean? Because I know they, you know, even though AEW have interest, WWE always has first, you know, has you know, first choice because, mind you, he was on their program. He was doing every fucking thing there. Everything, right? You know, but TNA at this point, right? I don't know. I don't know how this company can grow, you know, with the show and stuff. I don't. I really don't. You know, like, it's just, with TNA, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck to say. You know, like the ratings have also, you know, dipped down a bit, right? It has dipped. I mean, it's clearly dipped. And, you know, it's like nobody's really watching the show. It's like nobody really cares. You know, I understand, like, yes, we're on AMC, but it's like they haven't really done anything to pull in new viewers. Now, I mean, especially on Thursday nights. You know, Thursday nights is one of those nights that, Thursday nights, right? The only time that Thursday nights actually used to fit great with pro wrestling was when WWE had SmackDown on Thursdays, right? On UPN, right? That to me was like the best time, right? In the 90s. In the 90s, wrestling on Thursdays was the shit. I mean, it definitely was the shit. And yes, it started with Thunder, right? And then with WWE wound up getting SmackDown, you know, on UPN, which is now, you know, My 9 here in New York. That's when, you know, the traction for Thursday night wrestling started to be a lot more appealing, right? You know, and I don't know. I don't know. Putting wrestling on a Thursday night now, you know, it's just, now it just doesn't feel right. I mean, like, it really doesn't feel right at this point. Like, you know, and I know they also give Wild Women of Wrestling on Thursday nights, you know, but it's that actually, believe it or not, it's the same episode that they give on, you know, from the syndicated broadcast onto Vice. You know what I mean? And so, and yes, I did hear about the New Japan Pro Wrestling, sale to Cyber Agent. I want to get more information on what my thoughts on. Until then, I'm not going to report it yet. I'm not going to give my 2 cents in yet. You know what I mean? But this is a big thing. You know, I don't know. And yes, you know, some people will say, oh, well, you know, this means that the AEW relationship will continue and stuff, you know, because, oh, they're brought by Cyber Agent also owns Pro Wrestling Noah and such. Again, we're going to have to wait and see I'm going to wait and see everything, right? And then I'll report it, probably tomorrow. You know what I mean? But let me get back into TNA. Listen, you know, am I glad that TNA got, you know, a network deal? Yes, of course. There's more wrestling on cable. But you gotta improve on that. You gotta capitalize on that. Otherwise, like, you know, it's like they're doing the exact same thing they did last year with this. You know what I'm saying? It's just a bore. I mean, it's just a fucking bore. Like, there's nothing with TNA at this point. Nothing really with TNA. It's just basically a WWE farm system at this point. They are. And I guarantee you they're going to wind up buying TNA at some point. You can feel they're going to wind up buying it. I mean, that relationship is too strong at this point. It is. It is, you know? So, like I said, we're going to see. We're going to see what happens and shit, you know what I mean? But I'm definitely looking forward to next Wednesday. You know what I mean? Because next Wednesday is game 1 of the NBA Finals. You know what I'm saying? And actually, what's his face? Like, I thought the Knicks had home court. No, whoever comes out from the West is going to have home court. Know what I mean? So it don't matter if it's San Antonio or if it's OKC. You know what I mean? Games 3 and 4 are going to be played at the Garden. You know? So, but yeah, like I said about TNA, I don't know, man. I personally don't know. I don't know what TNA can do to improve on, you know, on their television stuff. I don't know. You know, I personally don't know. And the other thing too is, you know, we seen talent that TNA signed that, you know, was hype, but then, like, you know, is Ricky Sosa even still on the roster? You know, Sosa, you know what I'm saying? Like, what happened to, boom, Sosa, you know what I mean? What happened to that? I don't know, man. Anyway, guys, I'm about to be out, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna definitely holler at you mañana. If there's some news on this New Japan Pro Wrestling, you know, sale, for, you know, from Bushiroad, I'll let you know, all right?